Well, Scott, we might be getting a couple answers vaguely as to why Xbox head implies Tango Gameworks closure may have been due to a change of leadership. Chris Scullion over at VGC. The head of Xbox Game Studio has implied that Tango Gameworks was closed due to a change in creative leadership at the studio. In an interview on Variety's Strictly Business podcast, Matty Booty was asked specifically about the closure of Tango and why it took place. Dude, I like the fact that they just called it out. Why'd you close them? Right?
Yeah, get right to it.
Man, don't beat around the bush. There's no point. Although he didn't name.
The situation just sucks given what we know about Tango. Hi-Fi Rush was a wicked game.
Exactly, right? But we got a couple little details, which sometimes make a little sense. Although he didn't name anyone specifically, Booty implied that the change of leadership and staff at Tango may have been one of the reasons for the closure, suggesting that while Hi-Fi Rush was a success, there was no guarantee the remaining setup would have delivered similar success in the future. Quote, I won't get into the real nitty-gritty details on what went into the decision, mostly out of respect for the people there, end quote. Booty said, quote, just because there was a lot of work that went into delivering Hi-Fi Rush, which was a great game and did well for us. I think the thing to be considered is that for us, it is as much a forward-looking situation as much as a looking back at one certain game. There are a lot of things that go into success for a game. What leadership do you have? What creative leadership do you have? Is the team the same team that shipped the something successful previously? We have to look at all those things together and ask ourselves, are we set up for success going forward? And while there may have been factors or situations that previously led to success, they may not all still be in place as you look at what you're going to do. So, although he didn't specifically state it, Booty's answer appears that at least partially be referring to the departure of Tango founder Shinji Mikami, who left the studio in 2023 to form a new company. Scott, sometimes when the big shot leaves, doesn't really pay it for the rest of them, does it?
No, that's an unfortunate situation, but I suppose there is a mature outlook to take, is that, well, although Hi-Fi Rush did great and excellent by every metric, it just wasn't the same company anymore producing it. It just wasn't going to happen again. That's really unfortunate.
Yeah. No, and I think that's really what the standard comes down to here is it's not the same team moving forward that we had hit with the success of other games, right? Mikami, who directed The Evil Within, who oversaw Tango's other games in an executive producer role, is best known for his time at Capcom, where he directed the first Resident Evil, his 2002 GameCube remake of Resident Evil 4, among other titles. His decision to leave Tango may have had an impact on the studio's value to Microsoft, something Booty appears to imply in his latest explanation. Booty also suggested that closing Tango Gameworks entirely was not the only option considered, given examples of previous Xbox-owned studios that went independent instead. Quote, with many of our studios, we try to look at options, end quote. He explained, quote, for example, we recently had Toys for Bob, a studio that had previously working on a Call of Duty title, of course, right? Everybody at Activision got bought up, and then poof, now you're working on Call of Duty. They had to go back. They go back out and become a new independent studio, and we've announced that we've got a publishing deal with them, and we'll share more about that when it's important. Funny how you still keep that deal alive, though, Scott, right? Like, that's the biggest thing for me is, like, you just let that studio go. If you own that studio still, you'd still be making the same game, wouldn't you not? Like, and then you let them go and you're still partnering with them to make that game? Why let them go independent at all?
Yeah, well, it makes me think maybe it was to accommodate some sort of an executive change, just like what we're seeing with Tango here.
Right.
But just allow them to kind of do it on their own terms and not have the control of the oversight over top. But yeah, unfortunately, I think Tango Gameworks did have that oversight from the top, and it still wasn't enough control to keep them alive.
No, apparently not, right? Matt continues, quote, I think back to a studio called Twistle Pixel in Texas that we acquired. Then for a change in goals, it wasn't a perfect match anymore. The studio today is still thriving. We wanted to set them up for success. So we absolutely look at what the possible business options are to keep a studio open or perhaps have it change hands. And It's just one of the things that we look at across the board. Sometimes these things come together, sometimes they don't. End quote. God, it sounds like just internally the team changed, right? Obviously, with the big guy leaving, that changes things. That changes the perspective of the studio. That changes the overall vision. That's when we saw Hi-Fi Rush hit, and we're just kind of like, dude, what are you doing over here at Xbox? What's that look like moving forward? If the big person sticks around, sounds like you're okay, but if somebody leaves, you might be a little worried, right? And hopefully that doesn't happen in the future, but everybody has their own vision at the end of the day. That's why we saw Shinji leave, right? He's just like, you know what? I've done this enough. I want to go for my own studio now, get out of the Xbox umbrella and see what else he can create and make a new studio and then start from the ground up. Maybe make something a little bit smaller. Who knows, right?
I'm very curious to see what Shinji Mikami is working on now, because yeah, getting out of that spotlight, getting out of the pressure, and being able to produce something on your own terms is, well, so far led to very good success, just like Resident Evil. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of things he can continue on making, but it's really unfortunate that Tango by name is just gone. I really hope the rest of that company can move on to something interesting.
Absolutely. We want to hear from you, though. Let us know over at itgtv.com. How bad did this one hurt you? It hurt us. Hi-Fi Rush 2 is something we kind of expected here.